If there are any questions on the Chapter 7 homework, now is your time to ask. Are there any numbers from Chapter 7 that... Please note that on that second page of the homework where it's asking you for dates and stuff, you are not supposed to supply the date that the goods are received. That's not something you're supposed to do, okay? All you're supposed to do is fill out the end dates where it's asking about when the discounts end. That's it, okay? So don't worry about trying to figure out what the receive date is. If it's not entered, you don't need to tell me what it is. That's silly to figure you can figure that out. That's weird. So
can we do something that's like maybe it's a little bit different than the homework? It seems like we have different stuff when it comes to evens and odds.
okay.
So like 27, 727 with me is like
Okay.
one of those like something I think I'd like to know.
Okay. Okay, well, what does 27 say then?
It says Maplewood Supply received 5250 invoice dated.
Receive 5250 invoice.
Dated 4/15/16.
Good. Invoice date. What was that again?
4/15/16.
Okay.
The 5250 included 250 freight.
Includes $250 shipping. Okay.
And the terms are 410,
Terms of 410,
330,
330,
and 60.
and 60. Okay.
And so question A is if Maplewood pays the invoice on April 27th, what will they pay?
Okay, on April 27th. How much? Okay, let's just do this one first and we'll come back, okay?
Okay.
Alright, so first things first. Note they're giving you the invoice of $52.50. Note that there is no trade discount anywhere inside of you. Okay, so the only discount they're getting are the terms discounts of paying early in this case. Alright?
What number is this?
This is technically it's number 27. It's not technically a homework problem. It's just a good problem to do to sort of work through dates and whatnot. Okay? So, on April 27th, how many days is that from April 15th? 12. So, are they going to get a 4% discount? No, because it's after the 10 days. Are they going to get a 3% discount? Yes. 3% discount. Now, the key you have to be a little bit cautious with is that, do I use the $52.50?
No.
Why not?
Because you have to take off the shipping because it's included.
Yeah, if the $250 shipping is included, when you go to calculate your discount, you've got to take it out. Because there is no discounting on shipping, okay? So, take off $250 freight.
This is 5,000.
Uh-huh. So how do I take 3% off of 5,000?
Times 0.03.
Take the shortcut.
No, times 0.97.
What's 5,000 times 0.97?
4,350.
And it's perfectly okay to take 3% and subtract. There's nothing wrong with that. You get the same answer. Is this how much you're going to have to pay?
Yeah. No, you have to add the 250 back in.
Add the 250 back in, right? So just don't forget. So if the shipping is included, you got to take it out, compute whatever discounts you get, right? And this would also include the trade discount if you actually got a trade discount, right? You'd have to take that out as well before you do the trade discount, and then just remember at the very end to put it back. All right, because you still owe the shipping in theory. It's just that for whatever reason they threw it into the invoice price, even though they shouldn't. Okay?
So we still get the 3% discount?
We did. That's what this is.
Oh, yeah, right on. Oh, yeah, right on.
So, I
Sorry
mean,
about that. I'm thinking about the other one.
you can do the 3%, get the $150 and
I
subtract.
don't really like that, though. I like the 0.97 because it's just change of mind.
Yes.
I have a question,
Yes.
because we used the complement there. If they gave us a trade discount, say the trade discount was 30%, would we do times 0.97 and times 0.30 or times 0.70?
0.7.
Because we used the complement on that one.
Yep.
If we're using a complement one way, we gotta go all the way. Okay.
I mean, theoretically, you wouldn't necessarily have to. You could do the, say if you got the 30% trade discount, you could multiply by 0.7, get a new number, and then if you wanted to revert back to the old way, you could take 3% of that new number and subtract if you wanted to. I mean, it's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but once you sort of remember that you're working with complements, you should kind of be consistent. But technically, it actually will work mathematically. There's nothing wrong with changing back and forth as much as you want from one step to the next. It's just silly, right? I mean,
Oh, messes with your head.
once you sort of get this framework of I can use the complement into your brain, you should really kind of say, well, whenever I'm doing a discount and I want to know the end result, don't multiply and subtract. Just think complement, multiply once, and step right there. Again, that does take, there's nothing wrong with doing it the old way. I had a couple of people who, on this particular test, did it the long way every time. I mean, they never took any of the complements shortcuts at all, and it took them 45 minutes longer to take the test. So, it's not wrong to do it the old method. It's way the hell wrong. So I strongly encourage using the complement technique, but theoretically, you don't absolutely have to. Okay? All right.
I like it better. I just got to switch it on.
Yeah, I mean, it takes some getting used to. Any real actual number problems you'd like to see?
There was on number 42.
42. Okay, hang on.
There was something where it said that I wasn't clear if they were paying for the shipping or not. 'Cause
Okay.
It said FOB, but then it said the seller was going to pay for it. And I thought FOB meant the person who's buying the goods was going to pay for it.
It depends on how the FOB is written, right? Because remember, if you have FOB destination, then the seller pays. Whereas if you have FOB shipping point, then it's the buyer pays.
Oh.
So remember, you can have both sides. And so they probably were implying that it was FOB shipping point and that we, the buyer, had to pay the shipping.
Well, I guess they said Talbot's agreed to prepay the $80 freight. So I took
That is the person who, the manufacturer, was going to pay it.
They paid it, but you have to then repay them the difference, or repay them the shipping after they already paid it. In theory.
Oh.
so then you have to add $80 at the end.
Yeah, in theory.
Oh.
And again, that's the sort of this is the sort of thing that the book does with some of the questions that sort of makes me a little crazy. Is that they say someone else's company paid the shipping, and now you're going to reimburse them for the shipping, and I'm like, seriously? If somebody else paid for my shipping, am I going to reimburse them for it?
They tell you you have to.
I mean, yeah, you'll just say, no, you already paid for it. We're good. I mean, in theory, if you have like a contract negotiated, that you will do that kind of a thing. But I don't know of anyone who contracts that I'll pay the shipping first and then you'll pay me back for the shipping. That just from a business perspective, I can't believe anyone would actually do that.
So we do have to add $80.
Technically, yes, you have to add the $80 back in at the very end because you really do owe it.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, again,
I
that's.
think I get it, but.
Yeah, like I said, this is where the book gets a little annoying to me too, is that they get shipping happy. and then they worry about which one of these did they say, FOB destination or FOB shipping, and then therefore, and then if someone else prepays for it, you have to pay them back. Again, that business-wise, that doesn't even make sense to me. So, one of the questions I don't think you like.
So I add $80
Yeah, just
to the total.
at the end.
So it says agreed to prepay $80.
Yeah. So the prepay $80 needs to be paid back. So whoever was selling us this stuff, who agreed to pay for the $80 of shipping, technically wants their $80 back, and we apparently agreed to pay it to them. Even though honestly, I would just kind of go, "Oh, whoops! I forgot to add that to the invoice. So sorry." Sue me over it. Because if you don't have to worry about a company paying to, for services, then it's a small claims court. They'll just forget about it just as quickly as you do. Again, though, so just make sure on that particular problem that you'd add the $80 back in at the end. I can't remember, was that one of them where he had the $80 was included in the invoice or not? Did you have to subtract it out?
Well, they didn't even say that. They just, like the other one, there was one that said that the $100 shipping was included in the list price. And so
Those-
then we know that one took it out in the beginning and then added back on. And this one said they agreed to prepay it.
Okay, so it's not a part of the invoice, but at the end, you need to
You
say.
still owe it.
Yeah, you still owe. Yep. So after you get done doing all of your discounts on that particular problem, number 42, whatever it is, make sure you tack the $80 shipping back on or repay it back to them to guarantee that you are paying for the shipping that theoretically you owed, but they paid for you because they were nice.
So then on that problem, they got the 2% discount plus the $80 freight back.
Right, so they get a 2% discount that you subtract from the price,
Yeah.
right, or you multiply by 0.98.
Right.
And then when you're done,
And then put the $80
put the 80 on it, yeah. Because theoretically they paid it for you and now you're paying them back for it.
So it's almost like the question before then, in 27.
Similar, yeah. Except there the shipping was included, so that you had to subtract it out. Whereas this one, it's not included, it's just something you need to add straight up at the
It's
end.
prepaid.
Yeah.
So prepaid means that you get it back, in theory.
Right.
So we always owe shipping. There's never free shipping.
There's never free shipping, yes.
Unless
That's
you're
absolutely
Amazon
right. Yeah. There is no Amazon Prime. It's for us in this class right now. Sorry. Someone always has to pay the shipping, and in essence, the person always paying the shipping is us. Okay, it's the owner of the retail shop. I would not tell you that there was a $100 shipping charge and then tell you, oh, by the way, it's not yours. Why would I bother then, right? I mean, okay, you get the point, right? If I tell you there's shipping, make sure that you add it and add it at the end after any discount. All right? Monroe, folks, is there anything you want to see?
We do number 44.
44? Okay.
Yes.
All right, what does 44 say?
Majestic Manufacturing sold Jordan Furniture in a living room set for $8,500 list price
8,500 list. Okay.
with 35% trade discount.
35% trade discount. Okay.
The $100 freight FOB shipping point was not part of the list price.
$100 shipping. Okay.
Terms were 310 and 30 ROG.
ROG. Ooh, we're pirates.
The invoice date was May 30th.
Hang on. Invoice date May 30th. Okay.
Jordan received the goods on July 18th
Receive July 18th.
and paid the invoice on July 20th.
Pay on July 20th. Okay.
What was the final price, including cost
Okay, so find the actual payment that they need to pay and pay in full. This is a good problem. This is indicative of the sort of thing that I would ask on a test, right? I mean, I would probably word it a little bit better than what they do, but that's my nitpickiness to some degree. All right, so perfect. So, technically, folks, what's the list price?
8,500.
$8,500. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, so what's the net price? What do I got to do?
Don't you take the 8,500 times the complement of the
What's the
discount?
complement of 35?
65, and that's 5,525.
What did you say that was?
5,525.
About 25?
Yep.
Okay. So we've got the net price. Now, do we get any early payment discount?
Receiving 7th, 18th.
What does 3/10 N/30 ROG mean?
3% discount if you pay within 10 days of receiving it.
Get 3% discount if you pay within 10 days of receiving the goods. Did we pay within 10 days of receiving the goods?
Yes.
Yes. So, 3% early pay discount. So how are we going to calculate that off of our 5525?
Times 0.97.
Good idea. 5525 times 0.97. What do you get?
$5,359.25.
53.59.25. And then what do I have to do and not forget at the very end?
And shipping.
Add the shipping. How much was it again?
$100.
$100. Once you're done with all of your discounts, add the shipping. $54.59.25. And that's how much you will FTE over to them once you are ready to pay. Not bad? Classic problem. That's probably one of the better ones in the homework, to be honest. Any others? You feeling good?
My brain hurts. I've been in math lab since 11.
That's great. When your brain hurts, that means you're developing lots more creases in your brain, lots more connections to other things in your brain. That's the best, right? You know it's really hit the top of your brain level when you start dreaming about it, folks. That's when you know you're in math heaven. All right, well, if there's no further questions, folks, let me have them.
I might give you mine Monday.
If you want to wait till Monday, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Let me just make sure I did all of it, because that's what I always do.
There we go.
All right, we're going to 46, and then 48 is the extra.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
I did them all this time.
Okay, thank you. That's a good idea to make sure you've done them all. All right. Monroe folks, I sent your graded homeworks back to you. I don't know if they'll get to you today. It might not be until later this afternoon, so adjust accordingly. All right. So back to chapter 8. Markups and markdowns. So first thing we were talking about were markups, right? And as you recall, there are two sides to the universe in the markup world. Cost, price. Okay? Two sides to the universe. And when you're on one side or the other, you stay there until you switch, right? So, and if you switch, you have to move to a new business, okay? Please do not forget the basic formula that drives all of business in the markup world. Selling price is the cost plus the markup. That basic formula is gold. Okay, folks? That I would like to think I don't need to remind you, but just in case. That is the number one equation.
Why isn't it the same for both?
Because no matter what you're selling, you're gonna calculate the selling price by taking the cost and adding the markup that you're gonna mark it up by, the dollar amount markup.
So why would it be selling price equals price plus markup on the price one?
Because you don't mark up the price, you mark up on the cost always. So even though you're marking it up based on the selling price, you're actually adding it to the cost initially. Okay? So the key, the second equation, is what differentiates the two, right? You calculate your markup by taking either a percentage of the cost in the cost side, or taking a percentage of the selling price on the selling price side. Okay, that's what differentiates the two of them. It's just, how do you calculate what the markup amount is? Do you calculate it based on the cost or based on the price? Okay, that's all we're doing. All right, now, what I want to show you, okay, so before we go on, let's so if I buy a hat for, let's make it simple, $5, and sell it for $8. I want you guys to tell me what's the markup on price and what's the markup on cost as a rate, okay? Find the percent markup on cost, and then find the percent markup on price. So depending on which side of the universe this business worked on, they would report their markup accordingly, okay? All right, so first things first, folks. S, C, and M, okay? In this problem, what have I given you?
S&C.
I've given you the S and C. Which ones are which?
The selling price is the $8.
The selling price is the $8. The cost is the $5. And please note that those are two totally different things, okay? The cost is how much you pay to get it as a business, okay? I always talk about this sort of as a me thing, like I'm a person. Please realize that that's not really what I meant. I should say, if my store buys a hat for $5, and my store sells it for $8, what's my store's markup, right? I mean, I put it in a personal term, but really it should mean a business term, okay? So, based on this, folks, what else can you tell me about this hat? I mean, it's really obvious, right?
$3 difference.
There's a $3 markup, okay? That's the other key here, right? So the basic formula says that the selling price equals the cost plus the markup. So 8 equals 5 plus M. You subtract 5 from both sides, so your markup is $3. Again, I'm showing you all that just so that you can see it. I would like to think you don't need to see the algebra. You guys can tell me that the markup is $3. But again, this is just me showing you all the detail that you don't necessarily need, okay? And now here's where you use these two definitions differently, right? So you're trying to figure out what the rate is, right? How do I find the rate when I'm marking up on cost? That's the markup percent on cost. When I find the rate over here, I'm finding out what the markup is on price. Different definition, different number. Okay? So here, when we're on cost, right? The markup, let me just write it down so that we have it, right? I know what my markup is. It's $3. It's the rate times the cost of $5, right? So how do I get rate by itself? Divide by 5, right? I'd like to think you guys probably did this anyways, right? What's 3 divided by 5? 0.6. And note, folks, this is why I always call it a rate. Whenever I call something a rate, that's a percentage written as a decimal. Okay? That's what rate means mathematically and in the business world. Whenever they're talking about rates, they're talking about percents converted into decimals. If I want you to write this as a decimal, what would you write this as?
0.6. You said decimal. 0.6.
As a decimal, it's 0.6. As a percent,
It's 60.
yeah, 0.60, which you convert to be, so this is a 60% markup on cost, okay? Which makes sense, right? Because 3 out of 5 is 60%. Now, when you switch to the other side of the world, right? Now, M is equal to rate times the selling price, and we say, oh, 3 is equal to rate times 8. What am I going to do to get rate by itself? Divide by 8 this time. And what is 3 divided by 8?
0.375.
And again, remember that that's the decimal representation. How do I convert that to its percent?
37.5.
Right. So this is a 37.5% markup on price. Okay? So the markup, even though you don't technically know what the selling price is, when you're immediately calculating what, based on the cost, right? It sometimes seems a little backwards that we say, well, the markup was based on the price, even though technically we didn't know the price until after we've done the markup, right? That seems a little counterintuitive. We'll get there, okay? But that's how it works, all right? All right. Not bad? Okay, so. So bear with me. I'm not going to expect you guys to reproduce the algebra that I'm going to do right here, okay? I just want to show you the sorts of things that we do algebraically that make lives easier in the end, okay? So, right? We have those two equations. What I want to do is put that m into the upper equation, right? So instead of writing the first equation, s equals c plus m, I want to put this up inside of there, right? All I do is substitute, right? For the m, instead of writing m, I wrote what m is. M is rate times c. So instead of writing the m here, I wrote it what it is, rate times c. Okay? That's all I did. Just straight substitution. Now, what I'm going to do next, folks, is undistribute on the right-hand side. Okay? So normally, if you think back to our algebra and I said do the distributive property, you guys say, oh, when you have parentheses and there's a number out in front of it, put it into each thing. I want to undo that. Okay? So what I'm going to do is pull a C out and put it in front of some parentheses. Okay? If you think about it, when you distribute this C, what's C times 1?
C.
C. And when you do C times rate, what do you get? Rate times C. So these two things are the same. Okay? And what this gives us is a kind of quick formula we can use to calculate the selling price when we know the cost and the rate. Okay? Again, it's just a slightly different way of writing it. But what it does allow us to do, and here's where the magic comes into play to some degree. So I often call this my third equation. And the way I get to my fourth equation is I divide both sides by these parentheses, right? Right up here, I'm taking the cost times these parentheses, and then I divide by the parentheses. If you multiply something and then divide by the same thing, what happens to them? They cancel out. And what we're left with is a fourth formula that allows us a way to calculate the cost of an item when we know what the selling price is and what we marked it up by cost. Okay? C equals S divided by 1 plus the rate in parentheses. Okay? And these two formulas we will be able to use to solve problems quicker and easier. Okay? All right, and we're not going to use these right away. I just wanted to show you how I got them, and then once we start applying them, you'll see, oh, that does make it easier, and then we can go from there. All right? Now, I want to do the same thing on the other side of the universe. Okay? Or a similar thing, at least. Okay?
First one's the same.
Yeah, the first one was on cost. This one is now on price, right?
The first one's the same.
So we're going to start the same spot, except now we're going to use the new definition, right? But I'm going to basically play the same game, right? So my first step is to play that substitution game. Take this stuff and put it into the M, right? No biggie, right? Now, when I have the two C's together, I can do that undistribution game, right? Where are the two letters that are the same here? Why are you shaking your head, Kristen?
Because they're on opposite sides.
They're on opposite sides. Damn. How can I get them on the same side?
Unless they subtract their
And you are absolutely right. Okay, so good. Your intuition in algebra serves you well, right? So we want to get the two S's together so we can do this little distribution trick, okay? So we're actually going to subtract this to the other side, okay? And so now our equation is going to become, and you don't mind if I write it reverse? And now play the same game over there with the S's that we did with the C's in the other one, right? So make parentheses or undistribute, or what a mathematician would call factoring. We don't have to do any factoring in this class. This is why you don't need to recreate any of this. You just get to use it, okay? And remember what I did over here at the very end? I divided by 1 plus 3. What am I going to divide by this time? Yeah, 1 minus the rate, and play essentially the same game, right? These are going to cancel, that's the whole point. And so we get our extra equation here at the end, on the other side of the world, where S is equal to C over 1 minus the rate. And so you see that these formulas, notice that they look real similar, right? Kind of look at the two compared to each other, right? What's the difference between them?
Sign.
The sign, plus and minus, and the S and the C
Swap.
get swapped. Again, though, remember, you're on two sides of the universe when you're dealing with these two things, all right? All right. So what this does, folks, or what this provides for us, are some core sets of fundamental equations we can use to solve problems based on which universe we're in, okay? So, on cost equations. On price equations. There's going to be 4 on each side, okay? The basic equation is the same for both sides. No matter which of these you use, whether you mark up on cost or mark up on price, you're still going to find the selling price as your cost plus your markup. That always is true, okay? What's different is how you define your markup. Your markup is either a percentage of your cost or a percentage of your selling price. And then because of that, the formulas you get that come after this are slightly different, right? Or and then in the markup on price universe, and then doing the opposite version of that with the selling price alone. Okay, so these are the equations that drive everything. And the idea, folks, is that I don't want you to memorize these things. I want you to write them down on your note card, okay? So that you can use them. And your job is to just say, okay, based on whatever the business is doing, I either use all of these equations or I use all of these equations. That's all there is to it, okay? And what's going to generally happen in your problems, folks, is that there are 4 things up here that exist. The selling price, there's the cost, there's the markup, and there's the rate. I am going to give you 2 or 3 of those. Your job is to find the other 2 or other one that's missing. Okay? That's your job. And your job is basically to play with these equations so that you can. Okay? And in theory, all of this will also give you business-related information. Alright? Okay, so here we go. Right? So, my store buys a TV for $100 and marks up 80% on cost. Find my store's markup amount and selling price. So I've given you 2 pieces of the puzzle. Your job, find the other 2. Okay? Now, I don't always have to ask for all of them. I may just ask for one of them, right? I could have asked, just tell me what the selling price is, Or I could have asked, just tell me what the markup is, but realized that there's 4 floating around in there, and you should be able to always calculate all 4. Okay? So, your job when you do these problems, first thing to do is to read the problem and tell me what you got. What did I give you in this problem?
Selling price. No?
Cost.
Cost, $100.
What am I asking for?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so look for that, okay? That's a classic thing to get mildly confused about. It's the difference between cost and selling price, because someone sold it to you for $100, so the selling price was $100 to you. But again, that's to their business. Again, keep your brain in the frame of, I am the store owner of this appliance, used appliance store, right? So, my cost is $100. What else did I give you?
The rate.
The rate. Please note, folks, anytime you get a percent, that's always the rate, okay? Don't tell me it's the markup. The markup is a dollar amount. The rate is a percent. Keep those two separate in your brain, okay? So the rate is 80%. And please remember that what are rates always in?
Decimals.
Decimals. So what are you going to do with 80%? You're going to convert it to 0.8, okay? Pardon me while the cops walk by. Alright, so now that you have the cost and the rate, figure out the other stuff, okay? And note, this is where you go to your formulas, right? So you go back up to your formulas and say, okay, I am using the on-cost equations. You're using these 4. Do not use the other 4. What I've often told students is when you make your note card, put one of them on one side of the note card and the other one on the other side. And so when you're using one of them, you will always flip to the side that you use so that you won't accidentally use one of the wrong equations. Okay? This is kind of something I've discovered over time, is that students who write both of these equations on the same side of their note card tend to mix them up. Again, do whatever you think is best for you. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but since I've seen it, I will try and give you some help just in case, right? All right, so anyways, I want to find the markup and the selling price. Folks, what equation up here gives you the markup amount? The second one, right? Markup equals rate times cost. That's kind of what you're trying to do here, is to figure out which one of these equations can I use to find the information I'm looking for. And then make sure that you have the information available. Do I have rate and cost? Yes, therefore, yes, I can do this. Okay, awesome. So you can say, great, markup equals rate times cost. Substitute in the numbers, 0.8 times 100. What's 0.8 times 100? $80. And again, folks, I am writing it all out in detail so that you can see it. You do not have to do this necessarily on your homework, okay? Answers are always good. And then last but not least, what's the selling price?
180.
180. Now, how did you guys find that?
Add the markup to the cost.
Yeah, use the easiest equation up there, right? Theoretically, you know what C and M are, just add them. What else could have you done? You could have used equation 3, right? You could have said, oh, I could take the cost times 1 plus the rate as well. That would also give you the same answer. But please use the easiest equation that you have available to you. If all you have to do is add 2 numbers, folks, that's always best, okay? By all means, feel free, okay? Again, I would like to think that a lot of you didn't need all this algebra to do all of this, because that's pretty straightforward, okay? Now, the next question is where it starts to get interesting, okay? So, my store sells an antique radio for $520. Apparently it's The store marks up antiques by 225% on cost. What was my cost and markup amount? So if you walk into this antique, or if you walk into this appliance store and you see the antique is $520, and you're thinking, well, I know I can find one for cheaper. I mean, you could ask the guy who owns the store, hey, how much did you pay for that originally? He doesn't have to tell you if he doesn't want to, right? Or he can give you a number. And if you believe him, you're an idiot. All right? But finding out what they mark up on, or what their markup is again, that's public information. When a business marks things up at, you can find out. You can do some searching and get it. And so you could probably find that it was marked up 225%. So now the question is, how much did he pay for it back then? All right? We can figure this out, but it's not as easy as we hoped it to be, right? So, my question to you here, folks, is what did I give you this time?
The rate and selling price.
I gave you the rate and the selling price, right? So the selling price is the $520, and the rate is 225%. What are you going to do with 225%? Okay, good. 2.25. Awesome. Now, I want you to find cost and or markup amount. What do you need to find the markup?
Rate.
Rate and the cost. Do we have the rate and the cost?
No.
No, we have the rate and the selling price.
First, we need to find the
Would
cost.
you use the
So first we need to find the cost.
So would you do the third formula? Yeah.
This one tells you what the selling price is. So you're looking for
Once
an...
you're plugging in the selling price, you can figure out the cost.
I completely agree, but I have made it easier for you already with equation 4. I have already put cost by itself. So your job is to say, hey, let's look at this fourth equation. I want cost. Do I have the selling price and the rate?
Yes.
Yes. Now you have a formula that you can directly use to compute the cost. And your job is just make sure that you plug the numbers in correctly, right? So you're going to say, oh, awesome. Here's my formula. Cost equals the selling price over 1 plus the rate. Take the numbers and substitute them in for the letters, right? This is another thing that we tried to get you more comfortable doing in the algebra section back in chapter 5, right? Please note, folks, you know how to add 1. Do it in your head. You do not need to do 2.25 plus 1 on your calculator. You are smart enough to do that alone, right? 520 over 3.25, right? Don't tell me it's 2.26 either. That one drives me insane. So what is 520 divided by 3.25?
$160.
So this radio was officially purchased back when it was first found by that antique appliance radio store, whatever it is, for $160. They just marked it up a ton to get up to that 520. Now, technically, folks, how are you going to find the markup amount?
The second.
You could use the second equation, or how else can you find markup?
Subtract the 520. It's 160 from the 520.
Yeah, remember that the first equation is relatively simple, right? Markup is also selling price minus the cost.
Oh,
Perfectly okay to do the markup calculation as rate times cost, though. You'll get the same number. Okay, that's the cool part about it, right? Is that if you're kind of looking at these and saying, hey, here's a formula that's got it for me, you can use it. No problemo. But if you can remember that this one is already half filled, full for you, the subtraction might be easier. Depends on what you like, right? So either way, M is either 520 minus 160, which is what, $360,
Yes.
or it's the cost, or the rate, 225, 2.25 times 160, which is also 360, right? And it's nice to see that no matter which way you do it, you're going to wind up with the same answer, okay? And so you guys' job is essentially being careful at the very beginning of a problem and making sure that you properly tell me what you were given, right? So making sure that you realize that that $520 was the selling price is relatively important, okay? Because if you assume that that was the cost to start with, this whole problem gets completely wacko, right? All right. Not bad, though? Good. Again, though, that's the game with this first half of Chapter 8, is making sure when you read these sorts of selling an item issues from a store that's marking up either by cost or price, that you adjust accordingly. Okay, now those are the markup by cost ones. All right? So let's try a different one. Let's suppose that my store buys a. So we were doing appliances. What else can we do? Okay. Jewelry. Okay, there we go. Let's do. My store buys a necklace for. Is this a cheap necklace or a nice one?
It's a nice.
It's a nice one. Okay, so let's suppose we bought it for $40 and marks up, say, 35% on price. So note the difference, right? That's one of the first things that you want to do in every one of these problems is figure out which side of the universe you're on. Am I on the on cost side or on price side? Okay?
We're on the price side.
We are now on the price side. What am I going to ask you to find this time?
Cost is
I'm going to say find my selling price and my markup amount. Or find the store's selling price and markup amount. So, again, what did I give you this time?
cost and rate.
Cost and rate. Cost is $40. Rate is 35%. What are you going to do with 35%?
Converted.
Convert accordingly, 0.35. Alright, so now we are on the other side of the universe, right? So we're going to use these equations. Put these ones away, right? We're not marking up by cost anymore, we're marking up on price. Alright? So I'm looking for selling price and markup amount. In order to find the markup amount, folks, what do I need?
Rate times the selling price.
Rate times the selling price. Do I have the selling price? Do I have the selling price, the cost, and the markup?
Let's use the fourth one.
Fourth one, because what do we have, folks?
The cost and the rate.
Cost and rate. Okay, so notice kind of what we're trying to do in these equations. To determine which one we use, find which one has two of the three things that we were given. That will be the equation you use, right? So I wasn't given 2 of S, C, or M. I was just given C, right? Second equation is given rate, M, rate, and S. I was only given rate, not M and S. Can't use that one either. Next equation, in theory, I could use it, but The one below it is better because that one actually has the selling price solved for. That's what we're going to use. Okay. And my advice, write the equation down just to be safe. You don't have to. You can just plug the numbers in, and I'm okay with it. But I would love it if you wrote down the formula first so that I can give you points for doing that. So on a test, do that. Okay. On the homeworks, I don't care so much. But
Do you get points if you write it on the side for all of them?
as long as you write the correct one, yeah. That you're using, right?
Yeah.
So what was my cost? $40. What was my rate? 0.35. Note now we're doing 1 minus the rate. And nicely enough, folks, what's 1 minus the rate going to give us? 0.65. 0.65 is 65%. What else might we call that? The complement, right? Whenever you see 1 minus rate, that's something that your brain should start thinking. Complement. They're the same thing. Okay? 1 minus the rate is the same as 100% minus the percentage. That's a complement. Okay? So here, you can do this, right? You can get out your calculator and punch it in. All good. But as soon as you see 1 minus rate, your brain should just be saying, hey, I know that that's the complement, and I know how to calculate it without having to necessarily worry about the decimals, right? I know the 35 complement 65, convert it to 0.65, bam. Okay? Again, the nice part about it is that you've got a formula that you can work off of, and you can do the calculation yourself, no problem. And then you just have to type it in. What's 40 divided by 0.65?
Rounded at $61.54.
$61.54. Please note that selling price is a dollar amount, therefore you know where to round accordingly. Okay, maybe it wasn't that nice of jewelry, sorry. And technically, folks, what's the markup?
$21.54.
How did you do that?
N equals rate times selling price.
You did 0.35 times the 61.55 or 54. Who gave me the 21.54 faster? What'd you do, Misha? You just did the subtraction. Either way gives you the exact same answer, right? 61.54 minus the $40 gives you the 21.54. And those are actually nice things to do to check, too. I mean, it's not a bad idea to do them both ways and say, oh yeah, good, it works. All right? Now, Babish? Okay, so now let's try another one in that side of the universe, where it's slightly backwards. All right, so let's suppose that this time I am selling, or my store, I should try not to be individual, right? So my store is selling a watch for $120. The store marks up, let's say the same way, 35% on price. What am I going to ask you to give me this time?
The cost and the rate? No, the cost and the markup.
Cost of the markup, yeah. Cost and markup amount. So, technically, what did I give you this time? Selling price, rate. Yeah. So we can jump straight to the markup, right, folks? Equation number 2. Markup equals rate times selling price. We've got rate and selling price. Bingo. .35 times 120. What's 35% of 120?
42.
The markup's $42, folks. What's the cost?
121,
Please note, folks, that you subtract the price to get back to the cost. Invariably, what I'll have a couple of students do is accidentally add, and they'll tell me that the cost is $162 and they're selling it for $120.
We just lost mine.
Please, 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 pretty please, folks, at the end of every question, make sure that cost and selling price are in the right order. If you told me that the selling price is less than what you paid for it, you're not going to be in business long, okay? Unless you're trying to undercut your competition and get them to bail, you're not going to do that, okay? You guys aren't big enough to be Walmart yet, sorry, all right? So just realize that cost and selling price, you always sell so you make a profit, all right? All right, not bad? All right, so you want a funky one then? Okay, cool. All right. So let's suppose that my store marks up a bracelet by $210. Markup is still 35% on the price. What am I going to ask you for this time?
Selling price and the cost.
Yeah. Note, I didn't give you either of the two basic pieces of information about this particular bracelet, right? First off, though, which side of the universe are we on? We are on the on-priced side of the universe, right? So make sure that you are going to apply these equations, right? Now, remember, every one of these equations has 3 variables in it. You need to always have at least 2 of them. Which equation can we use?
The second one.
The second one. In fact, that's the only one we can use, right? In every one of these other ones, there is C and M showing up twice, right? Or C and S showing up twice. None of the others will ever work for anything. The only thing we can do is work off of equation 2. And note, we don't have what we really want. We want to be able to figure out the selling price. We have to do a little bit of manipulation to make it work. Okay? So we know that the markup is $210 and that the rate is 35%, 0.35. So this time we're going to use that the markup equals the rate times the selling price. Note, we got to do a little bit of work to get there, right? 210 equals 0.35 times S. What are we going to do to get S by itself, folks? Divide by the 0.35, okay? And this is why you kind of have to keep some of that algebra knowledge in your brain so that when you get to this formula where I don't make it nice, there's no nice way of doing this one, you just got to remember, okay, I know how to do algebra. I can divide both sides by 0.35. So what's 210 divided by 0.35? again, don't forget, what does S stand for?
Some
That's the selling price. What else did I ask for?
cost,
How are you going to find the cost?
first one,
Yeah. So what's my cost going to be equal to?
600 cost plus markup.
Yeah. Or you know it's the difference between the cost or the selling price and the markup. So we paid $390 for this bracelet. We're going to sell it for $600 and make that nice tidy markup amount of $210 in profit. Okay? Not bad? That's one of my favorites. I love that. It's your favorite too, right, Christine?
Okay, compared to 7, yeah, that's my favorite.
All right, so should we try another one of those just to be safe? Okay. Those are fun. I like those. All right, so let's see. Let's suppose that my store marks up a. We need to switch stores now, so we're done with jewelry. So let's see. My store marks up a
Ornament.
what?
Ornament.
Ottoman? Is that how you spell ottoman?
Yeah.
Looks right.
Okay. I have no idea. So now I'm into furniture, folks. My store marks up I suppose it's an N, huh?
Yeah.
An ottoman by, let's say, make it a relatively reasonable amount. Let's say it marks it up by $120. The store marks up, let's say, 40% on cost. Find cost and selling price. So similar problem to what we just did, except this time we're marking up on cost instead of on price. All right, so you guys give it a whack, see how you do. Again, remember which side of the universe you're on. Make sure you only play in that side of the universe. All right, what do we do first? Find cost. How'd you do it?
I did the M equals rate times cost.
Okay.
120 equals 0.4x.
Okay. What do you do to get x by itself? Divide by the 0.4. $120 divided by 0.4. So we must be selling, Amish furniture. Handmade, Again, remember that this is the cost. So what's the selling price?
300 plus 120.
300 plus 120? Yeah. Uh-huh. And that's probably not too far from what a lot of furniture stores are doing. Right? I would guess that their markup is probably somewhere in that 20 to 50% by cost type of a markup based on what they have to pay the manufacturer to get it, right? And that's not uncommon. All right. Not bad? Okay, cool. All right, so that is the markup on cost and markup on price world. Now, you ever think that we'd have to deal with markups and markdowns together at the same time?
Yeah.
Of course, but I mean that's relatively standard if you've looked at any, department store, right? Kohl's is constantly saying, "Oh, it's 30% off week." Of course, what do they do right before the 30% off week? They mark it all up by 50% right before they do it, right? It's not uncommon. That's what a lot of stores do, in fact, right? Before they go into a big sale, they'll have a big markup right before they do it, just to make sure they don't lose that much money, right? So I'm going to give you a little bit more generic approach to this one, just because it's more fun, right? So let's suppose that my art store is selling a painting for $500. Right, so the artist, Marshall Van Gogh, he apparently the art store thinks he's a good artist, but they should really know better. Anybody named Marshall is not very good at art. So the store sits in the painting sits in the store for like a month, and nobody even looks at the painting. So what's the store owner going to do?
Mark it down.
So after 1 month, painting is marked down 20%. Another month goes by. I could spell. Nothing happens. Mark down again. This time we mark it down 15%. Notice that all of these markdowns, technically, folks, are on price. Art stores almost always mark up and down based on price, just so that you know, because they are constantly changing the price. And then last but not least, another month goes by, and Marshall Van Gogh, in his state of total despair, guess what he does? He cuts off his ear and mails it to his would-be, girlfriend, right? Because that's what Van Goghs do. And now all of a sudden, Marshall, in a media blitz, is all of a sudden a very famous artist. What does this store do?
Mark it up.
Mark up, right? So the next month, the store marks up. Let's say it marks it up, say 120% on price. So literally more than doubles the price from where it was. Okay? So there's 3 different things that happen. We marked it down 20, then 15, and then 120. Note that this is also a chain event, so each percentage change is on the new price, right? Because we're basing them all on the current price when they are done. All right? So, what's the current price?
The current price before everything is $500.
Yes. So, what are we going to do, folks? How are we going to figure out what the current price is? What do we have to do? Well, if we take 20% off the price, what do you do to take 20% off the price?
Times it by
Wins by his complement. Very good, right? Remember, folks, that a 20% discount on price is the same as a 20% coupon. That's a 20% discount. That basically says multiply by the complement, right? So 500 times 0.8. What is 500 times 0.8? Nicely enough, 400. So after the first month, it's down to 400. Now, how do we do with the 15% markdown?
400 times 0.15 or 0.85.
400 times 0.85. Good. Right? So 400 times 0.85. What's our price down to after the 15% discount?
340.
340. All right, now here's the funky part, right? How do we mark up 120% on the price? Do that in red. 1 minus 0.2. This is 1 minus 0.15. Because these are markdowns, you do 1 minus, right? That's the complement. Because you're marking down. Well, if you're marking up, am I going to subtract?
No.
No. So what are you going to do instead?
Add.
Add. What am I going to add to it, though? What is 1 plus?
1.20.
Uh-huh. And so when you mark up, there's the difference. When you mark up on price, instead of doing, you can do it the old-fashioned way, where you take the 340, multiply by 1.2, and then add it back to itself. Or you can take the shortcut of 340 times 2.2. And what's 340 times 2.2?
68.
That's 2. I want 2.2.
740.
748. So when you do markdowns, do 1 minus. When you do markups, do 1 plus. And the cool thing about it, folks, is that the order doesn't matter, right? Because what is if you do all of that in one step, guess what you get? 748, right? So what if I changed this problem and said that the store owner, instead of doing the discounts first, did the markup first? They marked it up 120% to start with, and then took those 2 discounts. What's going to be the new price? Same thing, right? Because does it matter what order you multiply numbers by? No. And this is what's really cool, right? It doesn't matter what order you do the discounts and the markups by. They're always going to wind up the same because you're just multiplying numbers. And you guys know that 3 times 4 is the same as 4 times 3. So whether you change the order of all of these markups or markup rounds, it doesn't matter. Okay? Your gut tells you that it should, and you really, really, really want it to not be true. But the math is just slapping you in the face saying, nope. It's got to be the same, right? Even if you do it the long way, folks, it's still going to work out to be the same thing. Okay? So just realize that that's a truism, all right? So again, when you're doing markdowns and markups together, 1 minus for markdown, 1 plus for markup. Okay? All right. Oh, damn. Okay, yeah, there's really no point me trying to do the next topic, because the next topic takes like 15 minutes, and I don't want to go too far. Okay, so we're about halfway through chapter 8, not quite done with it, so you can do most of the chapter 8 homework, but not all of it. So what we're missing? We need to talk about perishables. And then we need to talk about break-even point. Okay, so we're going to save those for next week. So next week on Monday, we will finish up Chapter 8. The plan then is, once we finish up the Chapter 8 homework, is basically review until we take the test. Okay? And hopefully, on Wednesday, we can go over Chapter 8 homework questions. Okay, so I'll finish up Chapter 8 on Monday, answer any questions on homework Wednesday, and then note that the next test, is that Monday of spring break. Okay? So our test 2 technically it's March 11th. If you would like to take the second test early so that you do not have to take it during spring break week, which I assume you don't want to do,
Take another test that day.
just let me know, and I will set your test up in the testing center, and you can come take it on Thursday or Friday of, yes, whatever, not next week, but the following, and do it early. Okay? Entirely up to you. Otherwise, I have to be here on Monday all day, so I will be sitting here. If you want to wait until Monday to take the test on March 11th, you're more than welcome to, so your choice. Okay? But if you would like to take the test early, you do need to tell me, because otherwise I won't send the test to the testing center. So sometime next week, like Wednesday, if you decide you want to take the test early, ask me to put the test in the testing center, and I will. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you're going to take the test here on Monday the 11th. Okay? So, get me the Chapter 7 homework, if you haven't already turned it in, on Monday, and then the Chapter 8 homework sometime before you do the test. All right? Have a good one.
We can take it anytime in the testing center.
Yep. It's open from 8 until 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursday and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Friday.
So I don't have to do 2 tests in a row.
Yeah, and again, I can be flexible, so you just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, sure thing, Daniel.
Yeah, she's going. Oh, she's doing all right. I completed all my papers. I think the next paper is